Bitcoin has just weathered the most violent stock correction since the COVID crash, and it's been handling it like a champ. So check this out. From peak to trough, the S&P 500 dropped 35% during the COVID crash, which is pretty nasty, but Bitcoin basically said, hey, hold my beer. I'm a high beta player, remember? Dropped 58% over the same time frame. I remember the day, just watching Bitcoin just go, it's pretty intense. Now fast forward to today, measured from April 2nd, which was Trump's Liberation Day, the S&P 500 has dropped 15%. Make no mistake about it. This drop was very unprecedented. In fact, the 4-day price action between April 3rd to April 8th was the sharpest decline in the S&P 500 since the index launched in 1957. But what about Bitcoin? Well, did we just see a correction that was double or triple that of the US stock markets as we would normally expect it to be? No. We got a 16% correction. So far at the time of recording this video, we'll see what it is by the time you watch this on Monday morning, but that was approximately the same as the US stock markets, which is crazy. Now this led analysts like Grayscale's Zach Pandel to say that this was the most bullish Bitcoin drawdown he's ever seen, and I would agree because historical data says the Bitcoin has 2 to 3 times the volatility of the major stock indices. So here's the question. What happened, man? Why has Bitcoin fared so well during this tariff crash, which was as historic and as violent as they come? In previous mega market crashes or even the last tariff war, Bitcoin went into a horrific bear market. Well, here could be the answer. The big boys have arrived, and they weren't around back in 2020 and 2018 and all these other bear markets and recessions, everything else we've had. The big boys are not selling their Bitcoin. Go shaking in their mother's basements at the first sign of trouble. Oh no, they have held through the dips, and in fact, they're buying more. And by big boys, of course, I'm talking about the growing numbers of corporations and nations that are actually adopting Bitcoin. Bitcoin fundamentally has never been more bullish in its entire life cycle than it is right now. The price currently is a liar. So here's one of my theories on Bitcoin. The base floor price is and will continue to get pushed up as more and more corporations and nations continue to adopt the asset. It's really that simple. I know. That was a bit of a long introduction there, but with all that in mind, I want to look around the corner at the major players that we can expect will continue buying Bitcoin in the near future. I'm saying over the next 12 months, right? Not necessarily the next 8 months of the calendar year. Let's take the next 1 year time frame approximately. Focus on the current allocators that we can expect are going to add more to their stacks, or new players that we're expecting to enter into the market or are rumored to enter into the market. So let's start off with corporations before we go down that rabbit hole. Guys, if you're trading these cryptocurrency markets, whether you're trading Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, meme coins, whatever, you got to get over on Femex, OG cryptocurrency exchange, deep liquidity on all major pairs, available to anyone, anywhere, which means that if you are trading from any country, you can use Femex. All you have to do is use that link down below and get started. And guess what? You're going to get a free $100 trading position when using that link. All you have to do is deposit $10 or more, make a $1 or more trade, and they're going to airdrop you a free $100 position trade. Pretty damn cool, right? Go check it out. Link down below in the description. Again, anyone, anywhere can use Femex. No KYC. Check it out. So first up, MicroStrategy. They're no strategy now. Well, they've got 528,000 Bitcoin. Would you look at this chart? It's just up, up, up and to the right. So every bit of evidence says that Michael Saylor's not going to be stopping with his Bitcoin purchases. The last purchase plan strategy put out was on March 10th, where the company announced selling $21 billion of preferred stock for the purpose of buying more Bitcoin. Now, since that announcement, the company has purchased an additional 29,000 Bitcoin for $2.5 billion. Which begs the question, where's the rest of the money, Michael? At a minimum, they have another $18.5 billion of Bitcoin to purchase. Fascinating. Now, whether they can successfully raise that money or not becomes another question, but the main point is that we know that they're going to try. Next, we've got GameStop. On March 25th, the company announced that they had adopted a Bitcoin strategic reserve, treasury reserve asset strategy. Then on the 26th, they announced a $1.3 billion convertible bond sale for buying that Bitcoin. That was actually an oversold sale. GameStop generated $1.5 billion from that sale. So there's been no indication yet that GameStop has actually made their purchase. Ryan Cohen, the CEO of GameStop, has not said that the money's been deployed. Neither their new bond sale nor their existing $5 billion in cash, but we can be pretty certain that they have or will soon be deploying that $1.5 billion plus potentially up to another $5 billion of cash reserves they just have sitting on hand. Next, let's talk about Marathon Digital. They've already got 47,000 Bitcoin, but on March 28th, documents filed with the SEC show that the company is launching a new at the market stock offering for $2 billion, and they reserve the right to use that money to buy more Bitcoin. So I think we'll see more purchases from Marathon as well. All right, guys, look, those are some of the companies that we know for certain. We have evidence that future Bitcoin purchases are coming based on some of the things that they're doing. But if we're being real, we're going to continue to see purchases from companies like Semler Scientific and Metaplanet, from Tether, which is buying like $1 billion of Bitcoin per quarter. Rumble's started buying Bitcoin. And look, I know I'm beating this horse to death here, but here's 2 more points about the corporate adoption angle. First, there are now 89 public companies that hold Bitcoin. The last time I counted this list was just 4 months ago. That was 65. 27% increase in just 4 months. Companies will keep buying Bitcoin. Second, the growth we're seeing with corporate adoption aligns with a prediction put out a few weeks ago from Architect Partners. They're saying that by 2030, 25% of all S&P 500 companies will hold Bitcoin on their balance sheets. Pretty bullish if you ask me. Plus, the rumors going right now that companies like Meta are likely to announce Bitcoin purchases in the not so distant future, and that would totally change the game once again. Now let's talk about countries. You see, the United States, America, man. In case everybody forgot, they're gonna start buying Bitcoin, guys. Now whether it's done via Senator Loomis's Bitcoin Act through the executive branch with some kind of budget neutral purchases by revaluing gold or something like that, whether it's 100,000 Bitcoin or 1 million Bitcoin, I don't know, but they do have a strategic reserve already set up with Bitcoin in it. What I'm certain of is that they're going to buy more Bitcoin for that strategic reserve. It's probably gonna happen within the next 1 to 2 years, probably some point in 2025. We get an indication of when and how much. The US has telegraphed to move really hard, and I think it's going to happen. A lot of smart people with connections think it's going to happen. And we have rumors, of course, that Brazil's going to do it. There's a bill that's been circulating around over there. The Czech Republic, the UAE has already bought $500 million of the Bitcoin via the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund. They're already mining Bitcoin. But here's the bombshell that Matthew Sigel, head of digital assets research over at Van Eck, dropped on their corporate website on April 8th. And I'm quoting here, China and Russia have reportedly begun settling some energy transactions in Bitcoin and in other digital assets. Yo, what up? The Petro Bitcoin is here. Bolivia has announced plans to import electricity using crypto, and French energy utility EDF is exploring whether it can mine Bitcoin as surplus electricity currently exported to Germany. Now, these are early signs that Bitcoin is evolving from a speculative asset into a more functionary monetary tool. It's been going that way for a while, but it's just continuing to accelerate, particularly in those economies globally looking to bypass the dollar banking system, reduce exposure to the US-led financial system, and how way things have been going recently. You can understand that, right? And guys, look, that's absolutely crazy. And I don't know which nation's going to be the next to come out and announce some kind of strategic Bitcoin reserve purchase, but I'm betting a lot of my personal money that it is coming, that we're going to keep getting good news for, well, the next years anyway. I think it comes much sooner than most people are anticipating. There's a real wild card that China could be doing that. David Bailey from Bitcoin Magazine said there's been closed-door meetings about a strategic Bitcoin reserve in China happening. I also believe that all this corporate and nation-state adoption is going to continue to raise Bitcoin's floor price over time, meaning that the lows are not going to go as low as a lot of people think they will. Moving forward, the bear market's probably not going to be as severe. Now let's do some moon math. Remember that $37 billion worth of ETF buy pressure along with $22 billion of sort of MicroStrategy buy pressure pushed the price from $45,000 in January of last year when ETFs launched to $109,000 in January of this year. So in just 12 months look like. We know that Michael Saylor's got that extra $18.5 billion. Let's just call it 20. GameStop, $5 to $10 billion. They can always do more bond sales. Brazil, Czech Republic, say $15 billion. Facebook could do $10 billion. U.S. states could do $10 billion. The U.S. government, let's just be conservative and say $35 billion to make a nice around $100 billion inflow in the next 12 months. That excludes millionaires, billionaires, no ETF flows, no wild cards like China announcing, okay? But those ETF inflows, probably 10 to 20 more billion alone in the next year. If we get wild card factors like China or another major economy announcing, that's, again, crazy. 10% of the supply right now sitting on exchanges. So that's about $160 billion at current prices for the Bitcoin. Let's just say from all of these sources that they buy half. Yes, half the Bitcoin currently sitting there. It's $80 billion in buy pressure. Okay, so it's not quite the $100 billion, but let's say $80 billion in buy pressure over the next 12 months from all these different sources. And there's other sources too, retail buyers and all the kinds of rest of stuff, okay? $80 billion. That's probably going to move the price another 100%. Think about it. Miners don't have enough to dump on the markets anymore. There's no massive supply overhangs out there haunting everybody. Most of that stuff's been taken care of. That means, unless, of course, we get a new Great Depression happening, because then no one's going to be buying a lot of Bitcoin during that time. But if not, if things end up being okay, then higher, much higher than current prices. Potentially from current prices, actually, you might even be able to get 150 to 200% gains in the next 12 to 18 months, let's say. Maybe that's being overly optimistic. I am in the $1 million Bitcoin club. I think that in 2030s, we get $1 million per coin, not before them, but it's coming. But this cycle, next year, later this year, we could see much, much higher prices thanks to these simple catalysts that there are still people buying. There are big buyers out there with very deep pockets who are coming into the market. And that's going to have an impact. Thanks for watching.